Hello everyone, welcome back. Time for a new update. Well, it's been 4 months. I kind of like turned it from 4 updates in a year to I think 3 because things have changed so much, as in like my journey, and certain things have become so specific that the number of things that cannot be said, it's higher than the number of things that can be said, shared here. So that's one thing that you have to consider. And the other thing that is like very important, it's the nature of the transformation and how it affects me physically, and how it affects how my life has to work, well, how I'm supposed to do things in a way that I'm functional and I can still live my life. So plus the spirit at this point, it's more about integrating things. It's about really internal processes, things that go beyond the words here, and it's becoming increasingly harder and harder for me to actually explain even the things that I'm going through, because as I said, the language is limited, and it's like I'm trying to explain something 3D in 2D, and even if I'm explaining in 2D, that's not the full representation of what that is. It's just how can that thing be interpreted with less means, if you will, so that somehow you have access to something that it's not from the level of, I mean, from this where you actually hear the words, and it's much more. Anyway, so in the last update, I mentioned something about reaching the plateau of this reality, and that there's a like frequency fence, well, around things around this reality. Although, as I said, it's not the same reality, but why it feels like it's the same reality is because there is this frequency fence that most people experience. They don't know that actually there is a frequency fence, and there's things inside them that actually enforce that frequency fence. And as long as you do not have access to how to bypass that, or if you're too opaque, you won't even feel that either way. So what happened from that moment, when I reached that ceiling, the thing that I didn't mention in the previous update was the fact that I actually suffered more alterations to my body system, energy system, and also another thing, another alteration happened also on my birthday in January. I didn't mention those things because, well, as I said, there are things that are, it's better to talk about them from the past, and well, for various reasons, but also because I wanted to see what those things will, how they will manifest, will unfold in my experience. So those were really two important things that happened, that basically I had to work from that. I could work and I could see things happen, unfolding in this period of time, in this past 4 months. But before I go into what happened there, I mean, as in like transformation, I want to come back to the eating drinking pattern, which I haven't discussed in a while. If you remember last year, I was talking about this problem that I had with leaky gut, which was gluten intolerance, but actually it was the fact, the consequence of all this activation changes and things. So I went through this period since then until, well, recently, through this period of healing, and I was explaining that for quite a few, 3-4 months at the beginning, I couldn't even touch real food, like it was like baby food. I started incorporating some like more, well, I couldn't say complex, but for a very long time, basically my food was steamed broccoli and avocado and things like that. Rarely I could have something else. The problem is solved. I don't have this problem. However, things haven't changed back to how things was. Like, that problem marked actually the next level, another threshold where things change, and they never came back to where that was, because that's how it is. Like, you reach the threshold, you have to deal with what this threshold means is like what things need to adjust, change, and manage that change internally, physically, in all areas. So no, things haven't changed, returned to how previously things were in this sense. It's been harder to actually maintain longer periods of dry mode, but because of this, I'm always starting my day with dry mode. So I'm keeping it as long as I feel like, okay, it's time to, because I need to still take some supplements to make sure that the thing that I had before doesn't return, and also keeping trying to keep up with this energetic influxes that are very demanding, and one needs, as I said, all the help that it can get. So yes, I do take some supplements, which I mentioned in, I think it was physical changes. Yeah, so in this sense, certain things have healed. I mean, yes, that situation is healed, but things are not back to how it was previous to that moment in time. What's even, I would say, not worse, but like, because of all these changes and alterations, and it's not a metaphorical thing when I say alterations, I mean like real alterations, is that aside from, like, as I mentioned in other updates, videos, all the symptoms that I started to experience after the Bulgarian process, how food lost its like taste and it felt like basically like sand, like dirt or something like that. At this point, I can have taste, but it's like any other thing, as I was saying, certain things have been muted. It's like there's just, you know, that this thing used to taste nice, but that's it. It's a memory. It's not something that involves all the senses, all your being. Because before, you know, I mean, for those of you that are still in that phase, you know how you enjoy food and it gives you all these emotions and feelings and whatever. But for me, it doesn't anymore. So for me, it's kind of like part of this transition. I do consume food, but I also have the dry mode. So I as I said, I'm doing both things at once. But as I said, and the other thing is that, well, now with the COVID situation, we couldn't go out that much as we would do before. But in those, I don't know, few times that we could, I know, go out and enjoy something, well, somewhere to eat or drink, something like that, that would be always, as I said, like almost empty experience. Not that the experience itself, it's not nice if I go into a nice place or whatever, or sharing with somebody that I enjoy the company. It's just how the whole thing feels, because I feel the energy of people around me, and this still revolves around food, which is nothing wrong, but it's like, because I outgrow that level, I feel like I'm alone. I want to experience more. I want to connect in different ways, because I can connect in different ways, but there's no one to connect with in that sense, at that level, well, at the level where I am. So it feels empty, it feels lonely, it feels yeah, it feels like I'm choking. It's too limited, and as I said, as the energy grows and it's trying to, as I said, fit into like this, it's a size 10 energy, and my body and whatever is a size 2, so it's like, good luck with that, and you have to integrate all that. So it feels more and more uncomfortable, also empty. But then again, there's moments where, well, as I said, I can't live without magic, so I have to create magic. I'm forced to create magic. I'm forced to change things if I want to experience the reality, the level that I've already, moved to. So I'm happy whenever I experience those moments where there's more. It's like there's these openings where I'm like, yes. And I'll mention later one of those beautiful experiences. So yeah, this is something that it's not just, as I said, it has many levels. Even if I say I've outgrown this and that, I've been through many levels. So it's not just one thing. It's like, okay, I can relate to that. I say it was like, I'm talking about colors. Like I said, okay, this feels like blue, but blue has an infinity of like shades. So today it's been, I don't know, if 3 years ago it was blue, 10 or 10 blue, and now it's 20. Now it's then, I don't know, now it's 100 or something like that. So it's very different. So all is gradual, and you feel more of that things have changed in time, and then you reach this threshold and you look back, like, okay, this little in like subtle things that were happening but couldn't be defined, all of a sudden it's like, oh, so that's what it is, because now it's more, so something more has crystallized and it's is being defined, is taking shape. So yeah, that's something that is happening constantly. So outgrowing constantly, different levels of outgrowing. I don't know what else what term should I use, because even this is just like, it doesn't really help, but it helps in the sense to understand that you move beyond something. But moving beyond something implies various levels of that, as the energy grows and expands the awareness, and as you do the work, of course, you reach different levels all the time. So yes, this is something that has been happening for a long time, but that's what's been happening lately for me, around this area. I was mentioning, I think it was in physical changes, this is part of this period of time. The thing that I noticed, and not just in this past few months, but throughout, I would say, the last 8-9 months, something like that, the increase of in light, and more, because I experienced that even before that, but it's like really powerful, coming through, more energy, more light, and this being translated into like really high UV index levels, like 8-9 constantly, and even 10. So these are really, really high levels. Even they would happen like in months like January, February, March, like constantly, when this shouldn't be like this. And as I was mentioning in that video, this during that period when everyone was on lockdown, and basically was a period of time when basically the world stopped, and this was still going on, and although some of the temperature were low, actually this was high, and you could feel the burn, even it was like under like 25 or even 20 degrees Celsius, that you could still feel a strong burn. Also this strange humidity, feels like water, but it's not really humid, it's like a fog, like something like that anyway, and always feels uncomfortable, and it's very hard to breathe. It continues to exist, this it will continue to happen as the energy grows, and it will continually grow. And why do I mention again this sign of like, to understand that this global warming, it's not really due to pollution. Yes, pollution is a factor, but not really a factor that actually generates this kind of translation of like this signs. They happen because there's an increase in the influx of energy. We're moving into the next levels of accretion of energy, which will continue. So Earth actually is moving into a different form, and at a different form, let's just say geography changes. And I know that there are those that fear that actually, if the ice cap will melt, and there will be like people under, whatever, cities will sink and things like that. Well, there is a reality that this could take place if things wouldn't heal. But in a reality where things are healing or will heal, let's just say that things that once have disappeared, they will appear once more. Because as I was mentioning, there was a time, there were many times when certain parts of the grid were lost. And the last time there were 2/3 of the grid lost. So what that meant is that masses of land disappeared. What this means is like all that energy that could like explode. Remember the theory of Big Bang. So you have this huge energy, then there's this explosion, and then you have the universe and expanding, growing. And when you lose the energy, it contracts, and yes, it contracts. So that's what happened at that point when the energy was lost. So things have contracted and they seem like they disappeared. When in reality, those things could have existed. They existed, but they were part of a level where there was more energy. So things looked very different. So in the next 3-4 decades, well, expect a lot of like physical like changes, and not just our bodies, but like the earth. A lot of interesting things are going to happen in this regard as well. So yeah, expect that as well. In addition to what I said previously about, well, a lot of physical, well, geography will change basically, not just that, but a lot of layers will change. The storms, the weird weather is part of this phenomenon of these changes. So there's, as I said, yes, there are some types of weather that are man-made, well, certain things that are trying to keep the status quo, but moreover is like more than just that. There are things that are beyond the power of, I mean, to contain something like this kind of change. And this type of weather and, well, this brilliant sky that, well, most people don't even notice. And also these weird storms, then all these things are part of this restructuring time. And this is going to, as I said, is going to take a while. It's not going to be here for 1 or 2 years. It's, as I said, the next 3-4 decades are just going to be, well, a lot of that. So that's why I said, like, nothing will ever be the same. So you have to get used to it with a lot of, well, this kind of instability. But then again, as things progress, there's also more nicer things unfolding. Well, for those who actually can access this kind of level and are clean enough, are compatible with what's coming, because that's another issue that most people have. You have to become compatible with something that's coming. So if you're not, well, there's other avenues that you can experience of life. I mean, other timelines. So yes, these weird big storms that are happening and are going to happen, continue to happen from now on, a lot of them are just restructuring, reforming things, well, adapting, adjusting the energy, and yeah, turning into something else. And I see this all the time, and it's not just like something, as I said, nice thing to say, as I was mentioning in the last video, where a lot of people talk about this, inner work, doing this, but nothing happens. I see these things. Although they feel invisible, for most people, they become more and more tangible. And for me, that's an internal reality that exists and I experience all the time. So I know when something happens. It's just, I can't separate myself from it. It's a reality that lives inside me. And I know when things have changed, when things are of another nature than, well, what most people experience as reality. Yeah, so this is part of also this big physical changes, well, in terms of like geography, how nature will look like, and how, actually more important than just how things will feel like, because it's, as I said, in our reality, things feel more like a dream, like, well, at least this reality that I am experiencing already inside, it's more of a dream-like state. And things become more fluid. They become less trapped, less trapped. It's just more fluid, dreamlike. In regards to what's happening right now in terms of all this, like, people leaving the planet due to not just the virus or whatever, and feeling all these weird symptoms, because a lot of people associate this with the virus, but actually, I mean, the things that are prolonged, even if one has got the virus and then got well, but then things are never the same, is because actually beyond everything else, it's this change, is this rewriting of the reality that is taking place. So this affects at the deep level the bodies. Is not just like something, as I said, something, ooh, this fakes, and no, it's real. And now people start to see that, start to experience that. They don't know what that is. They run for explanation here and there. And the reality is that things will never be the same, which is strange and weird and whatever. Also, yes, I know there's been a lot of people that have, as I said, parted, moved to another place where they can experience another type of a type of reality that they can experience because they are unable to move with changes. This type of suffering and all sorts of limitations of life that are still taking place. They might seem that life is unfair right now, and that people suffer because whatever, there's economic repercussions and all sorts of things like that. However, although it seems and it feels tough and hard, I experienced so many hard, tough things in my life that at this point, yes, as I said, I am in a different place than most people at this point. So for me, what's happening right now, it doesn't really affect me. I have other things, challenging things that I'm dealing with, invisible things that I'm dealing with, well, for most of you out there. But certain things that most people experience now feel like this is cruel, this is unfair. And I want to give you something like a comfort, something comforting, although I know what I'm going to say is not comforting, is that certain limitations that you experience, certain hardships that you experience right now, is because you came here to experience those things. I know it sounds like, how can I come for something like this? You came for this. From a higher perspective, this makes sense. Like I'm bouncing, I'm just moving levels all the time, and whenever I'm meant to be shown something, I'm pushed outside of the level of experience that is mostly here, and I'm shown that with the awareness of how that feels like from a higher perspective. So I know that's true. It's not something that it's nice to say. As I said, when I talk about things, I don't talk about nice things to say. I don't like to do that. So all your suffering, all the hardships, all the things that you might go through right now, they are meant for you. They are meant for you to experience, not from because somebody's cruel. Although, as I said, it might seem like that way. Is because this is also part of the transformation, because otherwise you wouldn't get certain things. Remember, here it's polarity, so something will become evident by actually emphasizing one side of things, and then you will understand that it's like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want this, and then you're like, what do I want? I want the opposite of that. So, or I don't know, something else. This will trigger another understanding or another whatever thing that you might want to experience. So you need those experiences. You can't run away from them. So the best way to to deal with this is just, as I said, let them go through you, pass through you, see what they are, see beyond the pain, because beyond the pain there's always more. There's always more, and that is what's going to move you forward, and that's what's important. That's the gift. Yes, that doesn't mean we are not supposed to improve life, we're not supposed to help, but then again, certain experiences, we're not supposed to lift certain weight that's on someone, because somebody needs that experience of, I don't know, of loss, of, I don't know, something hardship or something like that. So yes, and because without that experience, as I said, somebody wouldn't get to a point where they need to get, you know. So yeah, adding a little bit more to what I just said about limitations and suffering, things like that. In my own story, I was shown that the path I was on, all the things that I went through, they were necessary. They were necessary to go through. But then again, when I was moved so radically from the path I was on, and it was very painful for me, all the things that I had to go through, and not just that is like why certain things are slower, why certain things moved in that direction or whatever, is because as I said, in physical changes, in order to go through these changes, this upgrades, this constant shifting, constant shifting, is you need the integrity of your body and all the energy that you can get to actually have. I mean, if you want to go with this body, it's like if you are able to do this. So I was put on a path that I could, well, preserve more of my energy, and I wouldn't exhaust myself as I used to do, because I'm very good at exhaust my batteries, and I was just forced to not do that anymore. It's just like, no, is going to basically obliviate you, and you do not need that. We can do this in a easier, well, more efficient way. And also it was necessary to actually open me for what I need to do from now on, and move my mind and shift my mind beyond the patterns of life, or what has been life until now. Yeah. One important thing that I would say has crystallized in this last 4 months is something that I started to experience. Well, I was starting to be shown, well, kind of bits of like this. Well, as I said, all the changes happen gradually, and they reach a certain point where certain things become tangible or more tangible, and to like something that crystallizes and becomes solid and becomes part of my how I experience and interpret reality. So this new layer has formed around me, things that I was basically being introduced. I remember it was November, December last year, and this is the thing that what I'm saying is like when my mind moves out of this reality, and it does this basically all the times. I have times when it does this, as I said, by its own volition. It's not something that I force. I don't do any special meditation. As I said, my path has always been right in the middle. It's contemplation. It's something that I naturally do, always did. It's between meditation and focus. So it's kind of like, if you were to have a representation, it's like imagine a picture that you focus on a subject and the background is blurred. It's like a bouquet. So it's kind of like that. So that's what contemplation is. You focus, but at the same time something is being blurred. So something comes into focus, but something around it is being blurred. So you can actually have better access to that thing. You just focus on that, and the other is muted, basically. That's the best I can describe how this feels like. And it's something that I came with as I entered this, the reality that I entered when I entered. This reality, this new layer of awareness of my personality also has started to unfold in the last 3 months now, as I'm like feeling how it's like becoming more tangible until like, it's here. It reminded me of the thing that I was saying. I was in 2015 when I was explaining that I just found myself one day and I felt this thing that popped up and like around me, this layer of like what I call positivity. It was just like a reality. It was just not something that I would make up. It was like plasma explosion, and from that point on things changed. I couldn't go back to how things were before that. So it's kind of like this, it's just different. And this actually I feel softer. It's like, not weaker, but I feel softer, and it like moves me in a way that it's more of the reality that it's coming, which, as I said, it's more like dream state in nature and fluid. And as I said, it's like, imagine something that it's solid, and then it's like, this, not just a space, like explodes, but when it explodes, it becomes like dust, and not just like a fog. Turns from something solid into like something blurred, and something like a fog. So that's kind of that state where certain things become just fluid, like, and lighter, and you just move more fluently, like more flexible and easier through things. So yes, the perception of things again has reached another another level where, as I said, things look more and more different, and it's harder for me and harder to explain because what I experience is beyond what this language here can express. And this actually brings me to something that I always wanted to mention to you, is like, why do I say it's like my words or the things that I'm saying is like I'm more alive than, well, other people's words, is because I can hear 10 people, well, it can be 100, doesn't matter what. I can hear your words, and I see what your words do, and the image, what image creates, what reality it creates when you speak, or you write, because it doesn't matter if you write or you speak. I can read that, and I know where that comes from, and it's like I know how far it reaches, where it goes, where it comes from, what kind of like context, what kind of like conviction, beliefs is from, what is the context, what is the language that is part of that, and that by saying those things, what it means in that context, and how far it is reaching, how alive, because that's more how alive, and how far in aliveness goes, which means like closer to the truth that is beyond certain patterns in certain contexts. So that's a thing that is always with me. It never leaves me, my awareness. So I know when somebody talks about love, unconditional love, and another person talks again about unconditional love, you could repeat the same text, I don't know, 100 people, I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. I can tell you what that person sees, what understands when it reads that, or when they say those words, and what this person understands by saying or thinking of those words. So that's why this is how I know when I mean, that's why it was also frustrating, because even if I want to communicate in a different way with some of you, it's like, I know, okay, I can't because, well, that's the level right now, and I know this sounds arrogant and whatever, and I'm not interested in, just as I said, I don't talk about a lot of things about me and certain things that I can do, whatever, because of that. And also it's not safe, as I said. I'm also not a circus attraction, because for me this is real and things happen. So I'm not interested in that, and I'm here for the long run, you know, and I've always been for the long run in my life, in everything, work, school, relationship, and all the areas in my life. And I know that when you have a long journey, there's a long journey behind me, but there's an even longer journey ahead of me. You have to know how to basically preserve the energy. You have to be efficient. You have to know how to direct things, and in the most efficient way for the journey, for the purpose, for the things that, well, in my case, I need to do. So yes, when I say that certain things, certain things are in a way, is because they transcend certain limitations that most people experience here, and they cannot really be translated, because most people's minds are still within certain patterns that they cannot escape, because they haven't created the space inside them to basically dissolve the solidity of that pattern. And even if they say things like, as I said, unconditional love, I don't know, whatever, we talk about patterns and whatever and things like that, I can see where that goes, or where it's coming from, how much space there is, how much reach in truth, in aliveness, which is, as I said, it goes beyond the patterns and things like that. And I can see that. I just can't. I just do. And yeah, it's part of this new layer that is becoming even stronger and stronger. And that's why it's also frustrating, as I said, is to communicate. Is how am I supposed to interact when basically there's no one here to interact with? So yes, it's frustrating in this sense, and many times I have to go down. And going down in frequencies, and this, as I said, happens in different ways. It's like by me being forced, okay, eat something so you can actually communicate with this person or tell that person something that they need to hear at the level that they can understand, but also help them to move higher, like break those limitations inside their mind. It's a tricky like navigating to, I mean, this journey. It's not easy, but this layer definitely feels more expansive, and it feels more expansive in like a lot of the fears about how I wanted to experience life until now. My old identity has basically fallen away. Is something that I came from death. Well, that's another story. Well, you'll find some interesting details in the books, clues. Coming back and working on letting go of the pain of all the things that, well, I needed to let go, has moved me far beyond what I imagined that I would think that it's normal or whatever. I thought at some point I would stop and like just live my life like everyone else. I know, but it never did. Doesn't. So, and I know where I'm supposed to go. And if I were to say those things, I don't want to have like reaction, okay, you're whatever you think, who do you think you are, and things like that. I'm not interested in that. I know what I'm supposed to do. Why am I here? There's a tiny number of you that glimpse something. But I cannot say those things. And for various reasons. And it's also, as I said, I'm interested in being efficient, and there's things that it's better left unsaid until those things are done, and I can talk about them in a way that is like, okay, it's done, it's here, happened. So yes, this new layer in my makeup, in the next phase of my expansion, it's like, feels like there's more love. It's like love explodes inside me. It's just like it explodes. It's hard to explain, but it feels like it explodes, and it just erased a lot of the fears and a lot of the patterns, a lot of the limitations around certain beliefs from the past. Not just, as I said, because as you go through things that you eliminate, you go through layers. You go through things that are just, as I said, whatever is available at a certain level of energy, you clear that. And then more energy becomes available, and then you're like, oh, there's more. I didn't know that. How many layers of this are? And you say, oh, okay, so there's more in understanding. So yes, that's why I say that there's more layers all the time. And it's like another, like a little example is like, we grew up being told that men and women are this way, and all sorts of weird, not just beliefs, but like prejudices. Men are like this and women are like that, and blah blah. And as I was explaining a long time ago, that for a very long time in my life, I really expressed a lot of my masculine. Well, it helped me. It's like that. That's how I came. That's how I was supposed to express a lot of my. It helped me to go through life. By using a lot of my masculine side and my feminine side in my early years of life was just the part of what I was creating and being creative and things like that. But as how I would carry myself in the world was more of a like masculine. I was, for a long time, I would say I was like a soldier. I moved out of the soldier phase. Took a while, but I moved out of the soldier phase. And another part was like, you think it's like, this is how men and women love and whatever. Now, I always felt like I was right in the middle. I just couldn't see myself this or that. I was just like, I can see both. I can be that and that. I'm right in the middle, although yeah, it's just like I could never really, when people would say to me, women like this, I could never understand that. It's like, what are you talking about? I can understand you very well. I can understand him and I can understand her very well, completely. But also certain, as I said, prejudices, not because I've already cleaned those things, but they came as in like to understand like things that have been planted long time ago, that came to the surface like out of nowhere. It's like, what's that serving me for? It's like, what's this for? It's like, you just need to know this. Like, I know this is the complete, feels like complete random, but like how men or women love, feels that the difference, and this thing that felt threatening to me maybe as a teenager, and these things are like, men are worse. I know, not just worse, because I never really, as I said, I never had these things where I should have more girlfriends than boys, like friends. I was always right in the middle. For me, was equal. But it changed. I incorporated that. I'm not afraid. I know how a man loves, and I know how a woman loves, both of them. Beyond the sexual whatever, it was like, I know how that feels. I just know all of that, and this is something that has been integrated at another level. So it was something that just came up. So that's just a random example. I'm sorry if this is weird. So yeah, this is part of that, and to reach this level of like, to reach this new layer that has been forming all this time, well, now I realize like, okay, this is fully formed, and now it's just growing into the next level. In the past, I don't know how many years at this point, I've been suffering all these physical changes, and they are vertical in nature, and they moved up, and now they reach the head, where certain things need to just go, and certain blockages, well, things that everyone has that need to go away, and I can already bypass those let's say frequency fences. I've started to do that, and well, it's been happening already, but those things because of the, let's say, the help from source is just like my part. I'm becoming stronger. I can do that without the help. That's what I'm actually trying to explain. I can do that naturally. It's like okay. Because until now there's been things that are beyond my control. Things happen because things were supposed to happen. I was supposed to get information. I was supposed to move out in whatever, so I can see things. It's just I have grown more. I mean, beyond what I have been now and my former identity. And this feels more expansive, more comfortable, less fear of certain things. And it's not that it's easy. The work that needs to be done from now on, but it has created, I don't know, it's just more, I don't know, it feels easier in a way being here at this level. That's all I can say. I want to add something quickly in regards to all this shifts and all the energy upgrades and all this like influx, this extreme influx in this past few months, which has been crazy. Although in the beginning of the year it was just like very, very heavy and very just oppressing, but then it became less oppressing like around like June, and then it started to just like pump in. It's like basically I couldn't sleep in this past, I don't know, 3-4 months. It was just terrible, and I felt exhausted most of the time, even if like I would force myself to go to sleep early. Although I'm a night owl and I do a lot of things, work things like creative, and at night, that's how I've been my entire life. But I would really force myself to go at an earlier time than usual. it didn't work. It's just, it was very hard for me to actually to do that. And because of all these changes, and not just like because I couldn't sleep, but for me, these physical changes, there are periods of time, I was mentioning this, like vertical changes, are just sometimes unbearable. They they are pure tortures. I don't even exaggerate. I wish that I were exaggerating, but that's how they are. And sorry that I couldn't, or I didn't respond to some of the private messages, or it took me this long to reply to some of you. I will reply to those of you that I still haven't. So it was really really demanding in this sense, physically, mentally, and I just, at some point, I decided to just basically disconnect. And I had moments where not just I've completely disconnected from here, but I would be taken out of this reality. And like, because I couldn't, I have moments like when you faint, there's something happens and you just like, you can't, it's like, I would basically, something would happen like this, and then I would come back refreshed, like, oh, okay, I have more powers, like more space inside me. I can do this now. I can go on for a little while longer. So yeah, in this sense, this period of time has been really exhausting, really exhausting. I hope that in the next few months I'll be able to get a little bit of sleep. Yeah. So it has affected a lot of the cycles, although I never really had normal cycles. Like, I wanted to have normal cycles, but again, my life is not really normal. It is what it is. I made peace with it. But I would say the summer has been extreme, and it will increasingly be like this each year, because the energy will grow and certain things exponentially will grow, and will shift the time, will shift how things feel, how things look like from now on. But again, then again, we have to go there. We have to get through all these things to get there and see how that feels. I am given glimpses sometimes from what's even further away. It's like, look, this is kind of like how this might feel and look like when you get there. But then I come back, I have to do the work, and then shift, change, and then all these subtle things start to grow, and things start to look different, not because I had help, but because I have developed I grow my energy and my power. Yeah, so I wanted to add that in. I would like to end this video with something that supports what I just explained about this new layer that has, well, popped up around me in my personality, in my a Christian energy level, in my unfoldment, that, as I said, is marked by this softness, this more love, more just explosion of this. It was 1st of July. I might, if I find the pictures, I might insert. I actually posted them on Instagram. It was a beautiful evening. Like always, nobody was looking at the sky, because why would you look at the sky? I mean, why would you? Only these crazy people do that. This magical sky, it's every day here for me in so crazy shapes and forms that is just like, I can't even explain. Anyway, so I captured that night, that evening, the beauty of that. As I said, I'll insert here some pictures from that evening. And as we were returning from that from having those things, experiencing that beauty, we were driving home, and it's like all of a sudden the sky got, I mean, those beautiful white clouds turned into something like a dark, I think it was like what's coming a storm, but there was no storm. It was just like this little blanket of clouds was starting to cover us. But it turned, it's like the solidity of the reality, it disappeared. Then it's like I didn't feel the ground anymore. I mean, of course, we're in the car and you cannot feel the ground, but it's like there's no support for the car. I just felt like how my reality dissolved. And above, I just felt this love. There's like the sky was love, and I was seeing the most incredible sunset. It's just like, although this cover of dark clouds was above us, but in front of us there was this amazing magical sunset. And yeah, I just felt like my heart was exploding, and that's how I that's how I got home. I just felt like it was the reality dissolved. That's the best I can say. I just went home like flying. Yeah, so that's how crazy it can get sometime. Anyway, there's more, there's always more, but as I said, there's more specific things that I can't talk, but of course you'll always find clues in the books and other things, or I'll talk about more in the future. Anyways, I hope this was interesting and helpful, and see you next time. Ciao. As we grow into energy and expressing a higher levels of energy, we express a higher mind, which is more complex, more sophisticated.